Hello, friends. It is I, host Eric, host of Talking with Famous People, beginning a live stream about typing and griping. Why typing and griping? Well, because that's what goes along. That's what goes on a lot in the larger YouTube community. What goes on? Typing and griping. What do people gripe about? Well, they gripe about all kinds of things. Sometimes they gripe about, hello, Amber Drasher. Good day to you as well, friend. Regulus, sup ninja, sup samurai. Jessica Moore, hello. You've got your palms to your cheek like this. I see. Stephen Lewis, yo. Yo indeed. Yo right back at you like a yo-yo going down and up again on his own volition. So I just returned from the marijuana store, so I got nothing to gripe about there. I do have some marijuana. I did get top shelf instead of something a little bit better, but it's pretty good. Fate Wind is here. We've all been waiting. We said, where's Fate Wind? And finally she showed up. That's an air. Smiley face hand. That's an air. Smiley face hand. Layla. Hello, Layla. I had a crush on a girl named Layla when I was about 16, 17. I had a big crush on her. I went on a date with her, but I was very scared. I was very scared to hold her hand. And you know why? Because I have a scar on my hand. I was afraid she'd be like, ew. Oh, air hug. Oh, cool. See the scar on my hand? I don't know if you can see it or not. When I was like 9 months old, I melted my hand. It wasn't you, Layla? Okay, good. That'd be interesting if it were that Layla who was here in this live stream. That'd be really, really compellingly interesting. But I'll have to live with the fact that it's a different Layla. Yeah, so when I was 9 months old, I put my hand on a light bulb apparently and melted my hand. And so when I was growing up, I couldn't open my hand any more than this because all the way until I was 18 years old, because my fingers were webbed and it was like that, you know. And I was embarrassed because I was afraid that she would feel my scars and be repulsed by it, you know, on my hand, which it seems silly now, but at the time was a matter of concern to me. And but I did end up holding her hand that night, I believe. Regardless, when I was 18, I got surgery on my hand to cut away most of the webbing, and it allowed me to open my hand all the way, which is nice. Feel my scars does sound kinky. Do you love serious scarring? Does it turn you on? Well, feel my scars. Feel them. Touch them with your fingers. Well, I'm sorry about all the sounds of gardening equipment in the background. They usually are quick. The gardeners don't want to spend a lot of time gardening because, you know, that makes the amount of money they make less, so to speak. Thank you, Amber. I appreciate your recognition of that. This kind of weed is called Dr. Evil OG. It's pretty good. You know, they have 2 levels above it. They got private reserve and they've got connoisseur above top shelf. But you can see it looks pretty good. It's pretty dense. It's nice and dense. It smells good. You know, it's not impossibly good like I'd like it to be, but not bad. Lead TI users, your boss are the worst. Your opinion on the worst type as your manager. You know, my former boss may have been a lead TI user as well, and it annoyed me because I could never get him to commit on anything. He was always, well, that's a good idea. Let me think about it. And I couldn't get him to commit on anything. And I was trying to get shit accomplished, you know. That was frustrating for me. Let's see. What do you think of the function emergence? Do you think cognitive functions become more pronounced in specific stages of development? I think that people take some time to come to terms with their attentional priorities. So when I was very young, I think I prioritized TI. When I got a little bit older, I think I prioritized FE more, at least tried to. Like started to come to terms with the fact that I needed to be less abrasive and or contradictory or something in order to get along with people, because that's what really mattered to me. But I didn't really understand it in those explicit terms. I just sort of, it's kind of an autopilot-y, this is how I'm rolling kind of thing. So I think that then after a certain period of time of being relatively successful with my FE, or at least relatively successful in attaining some of my FE goals, I started to realize that FE by itself was like just dessert all the time, and I needed some real food. And I started kind of bouncing back to TI, and also started to develop my SI a bit, where I started to keep the things I was making in some sort of a sloppy, non-archival fashion, but still managed to keep shit and accomplish some things and finish some stuff and start to build a repertoire of self. Yeah, that would frustrate me too, TJ. That would frustrate me. It reminds me of when I was in China. When I was in China, I ran a tournament at this school in Wuxidong. And the thing about it was, it brought me over there to run this thing because I know what I'm doing, and nobody over there knows what they're doing about that because it's a brand new thing, for them. But the problem is they wouldn't give me the basic powers I needed to accomplish what I needed to accomplish. I had to run everything by Dr. Wu or whatever his name was. And he was not responsive particularly. And so it's like 2 days before the thing, and I haven't gotten key answers that I need answers on. And it was very frustrating. And finally he comes in and goes, okay. Couldn't you have told me this a week ago? Or couldn't you just have afforded me the power to make the decision myself? That's China for you. I mean, it's a very poorly designed country. Scars mean you're a survivor. I survived burning my hand. I also survived getting my appendix out. That's why I got a scar there. I did get my appendix out when I was in 5th grade. They said I had appendicitis. Actually, they said that it was inconclusive on the appendix when they took it out. But my problem went away after they took it out, so I'm guessing that was the problem. And in 5th grade, I don't think so. 5th grade was a big year for me. That was also the year when my grandfather was murdered. The year I got my appendix out, and the year my grandfather was murdered. That guy. Nobody wants to be that guy. Amber Drasher, you know what you're talking about. That guy has problems. Whoever you got to deal with, you don't want to deal with that guy. Oh, well, it's okay. It was many, many years ago, obviously. It's odd. I didn't really have a lot of emotional reaction to my grandfather's murder when I was in 5th grade. I just noted that everybody else seemed to be very upset about it. And, I tried to display appropriate solemnity, but I didn't really feel anything, which didn't even seem particularly odd to me at the time. It just seemed like, well, everybody's all emotional, obviously. It's obviously serious. I better not make jokes. I actually feel sadder about it now than I probably ever have before in my life. It was shot 7 or 8 times. I don't remember which. I recently read that you can Google his name, Alfred J. Cole, Koll. Alfred J. Cole, and you'll see he's mentioned a lot in California Supreme Court cases because his murderer made various legal gambits based on certain constitutional issues that ended up getting rejected but that made case law in California. So there's actually quite a bit of stuff on the internet about Alfred J. Cole and his murderer, whose name I forget. I mentioned him before in a video. You may have watched it. I don't know. It was a video when Kim and I went to a football game, and it was like a edited story video or something. Yeah, well, see, the thing is, my grandfather was a pharmacist, as was my grandmother. My grandmother was actually the first woman pharmacist in Arizona. Anyway, they then moved to Pasadena, or they moved to Arcadia, and my grandparents owned a pharmacy in Pasadena. And they had gotten robbed one time by this guy. And Juan Prentice Snow is his name. Juan Prentice Snow robbed my grandparents. So then sometime later, the Juan Prentice Snow was on trial for the robbery. And they were on a lunch break at trial. And the prosecutor said, here's a deal I'm going to offer your client right now. And he can take it. And it's as good a deal as he's going to get. It's as good as he's going to get in the case. You should just take it. And the defense attorney said, okay, I'll run it by him. And he ran it by him. The guy said to the Juan Prentice Snow said to the defense attorney, let me think about it over lunch. I'll come back over after lunch and I'll make my decision. And then he went, left the courthouse on the lunch break. I guess he was out on bail. He got on a motorcycle with a motorcycle helmet, rode to my grandparents' pharmacy, and leaving the motorcycle helmet on, shot my grandfather 7 times in the chest and stomach, and then went back to court, and was with his lawyer and with the prosecutor there, and then somebody came up and told the prosecutor, hey, your witness this afternoon, because he's supposed to testify that afternoon, right? Your witness this afternoon was murdered right now. And Juan Prentice Snow displayed no surprise at this and was like, I don't want to take your deal. So that's that's what happened. But he ended up getting, arrested for the murder and convicted of murder, and is currently on California's death row. Interestingly enough, I believe he's on death row. He might be just life in prison. I could be wrong about that. But I will say this, that my grandmother was Juan Prentice Snow. I don't know. My grandmother's life, basically, that's when her life ended as well, because, she was really quite a vibrant woman prior to my grandfather's murder. And then afterwards, she just got old really fast, and she probably had, well, let's see, she had another 8 years of life left after that, maybe 9. So, but she wasn't the same after he was killed. Although, what's interesting is on her deathbed, my grandmother told my mother that the only man she'd ever really loved was my mother's biological father, because Alfred Cole is not my biological grandfather. He's my mother's stepfather. But she told my mom the only man she had ever really loved was Earl Schneider, my biological grandfather, who she left because he beat her and he was a drunk. Interesting little family history there. This is probably not the sort of subject people tune into the live stream to hear, but tangents go where they go, and being an ENP, I tend to let them lead me as they see fit. So anyway, that's a little interesting life history from me. Not everybody's had a immediate family member murdered in so dramatic a fashion. It's kind of a nice cocktail story or something. People tend to be like, I'm so sorry. Well, I mean, come on, I was in 5th grade. I'm 47 years old now. It's a pretty long time ago. I think I've gotten over it to the extent that I was sad about it before. But it is kind of a sad story about my grandmother. And, but of course, the other thing is, when my grandmother died and we went to clean out her house, she was a Percodan addict. She had massive bottles of Percodan. They must have been, $10,000 street value worth of opiates and stuff in there. My parents just threw it all away, of course. But that's, she was a pharmacist, so And then, back in the day, before they had quite so strict a lock on shit, I guess she just basically could help herself to whatever drugs she wanted, and she did. But she was an ESTJ, and she had her feet when she was really old looked really painful. Like they were all crinkly looking, and like they you know, you could see the arthritis kind of going to her and stuff. So maybe she took it for that. Yeah, our judicial system did work in that instance, and I'm glad for that as well. And in fact, for many years, my parents still received parole board notifications if when you come up for parole, if they wanted to come, say no, keep them in jail as the victims. So yeah, right. My grandparents had interesting lives for sure. At least on my mom's side. My dad's grandparents, I mean, my dad's parents were a little bit more mundane. His father left the family when my dad was fairly young, and my dad had to take on the role of the man of the family at like 10 or something. And he resented my biological grandfather till his dying day for it. And you know, probably is why he's such a good dad to me and so reliable. Is his own father was unreliable, and he hated that. And so anyway, he had a very laborious childhood and stuff. He worked on the farm. His mom had a farm, and his dad left, and then it was him and his mom and his sister running the farm. But it wasn't forever during his childhood. I guess at some point they gave the farm stuff to Uncle Luke or something, and then they moved to a town. I'm not sure exactly. But the point is, he had one of the childhoods where he walks 10 miles in the snow each way to school. He's full of those kind of stories, you know. But except they're probably legit. And so Ruth, his mother, whom he loved a lot and doted on a bit, but he also had contempt for her in the sense that he thought she was a complete idiot, and she kind of was. I remember her, but she was kind of a complete idiot. But even as a kid, I could tell she was like, this woman's an idiot. So my dad had a certain amount of contempt for her. So my dad's very bright. He's a TE Dom, but that doesn't mean he's not smart. And he's insanely logical, more so than me. Like, he has zero respect for feelings. So yeah. Anyway, that was Ruth, and she died when I was fairly young. I never did meet my biological grandfather before he died. He did send me something one time in the mail. He sent me a statue of an eagle, which I thought was dumb, but my dad insisted that I not voice that about it. He was like, Eric, this is a nice gesture from your grandfather. You need to respect it. I was like, okay. It's like some dumbass, like, Franklin Mint eagle statue. So that was the only contact I ever got from my biological grandfather on my dad's side. Now, interestingly, my biological father on my mother's side, he died in a drunk driving accident. But before he died in a drunk driving accident, my mom and my dad were in Europe. And he had somehow contacted my mom after not talking to her for a lot of time, I guess, and said to her, I'm sending you some money. I want you to buy me a gold watch in Europe, which he did send them the money. They did buy the gold watch. They did send it to him, and they got it back years later in the mail. They got it back years later in the mail with blood on it when he crashed when he got into a drunk driving accident and died. He got blood on his gold watch, and somehow they mailed it back to my parents. So, and then the cleaning lady stole that watch, which kind of sucks. Sorry about the story. So anyway, those are just some interesting parent stories I have. You know, my parents, they met in Europe, and they travel all around Europe. My dad raced Mini Coopers in Europe, which is kind of a cool thing. He played in the army band in post-war France. I mean, it was a while after the war, but, you know, it was like early 60s. So anyway, they have an interesting life. And I don't think they really wanted to leave Europe. In fact, when I asked my dad about it, it sounded like if he hadn't been up in the air about his contract the following year, they would have stayed in Europe, and they weren't really planning on having any kids. Came back here, 35. They're like, I guess we'll have a kid. I think my mom had a miscarriage before me, but who knows? Could have been an abortion. My great grandma is still alive at 89 and still drives and is pretty healthy. My family on my dad's side tends to live rather long lives. Hoaxer, are you a fan of documentaries? Hoaxed by Cernovich is the last one I saw, and it was an instant classic. I'll have to check it out. I'm not familiar with that at all or anything about that. Am I off my pills at the moment? No. You're very feely? I don't think I'm very feely. I'm just talking about stuff that's not very intellectual at the moment. I don't feel particularly feely. And Jesus Christ, your family sister, like, what the fuck? Friend, you're an incredibly intriguing fellow, General. Thanks, Amber. I appreciate that. It's actually my parents were a lot more intriguing than me. My mom now is obviously in a state of not being my mom anymore, really. But my dad's still the same guy. He's just a little bit more stuck in his ways, perhaps, because he's 82. And he's deaf almost completely. So it can be difficult to communicate with him. Although he does have hearing aids, and he gets those things cranked up, I guess, as high as you can get them, and you can kind of carry on a conversation reasonably with him. But he's in pretty good health other than that. And the reason he has so many hearing problems is, tranquil. Yeah, I am feeling pretty tranquil. But the reason he had so many hearing problems, he was in artillery in the Navy, so he had to shoot off those big guns. And back in the day, they didn't give him ear covering things. So it's like they really should give him money or something for that. It seems like the Navy would normally do that. But also, then when he wasn't shooting off those big guns in the Navy, and he hated the Navy because he got seasick. Kid went into the Army, and they put him in the band because when he was at Army Basic, which he said was a breeze because he'd already gone through Navy Basic and had gone through, been in the Navy for a long time. When he went to Army Basic, there was this play they were putting on at the base. So some of the officers' wives had organized some of the musical people and some of the actor type people in the basic training, I guess, to put on like a play of like Oklahoma or something. Oklahoma, where the wind comes rushing down the plain. And anyway, my dad was friends with somebody who was in the orchestra in that play, and he said, "Hey, we need a French horn player," because my dad played French horn. You want to come try out? And my dad tried out, and they said, "Okay, yeah, you can play in this play, in the orchestra in this play." And then after a little while, the band, the guy said, "Well, let me talk to my captain or whatever and see if we can get you in the band." And then they successfully got my dad into the band of the French horn player. And that's why my dad's job in Europe was to travel around Europe and play concerts in little French villages and stuff as sort of a goodwill gesture from the Americans, and just get drunk all the time, basically. It seems like. So, my dad was quite a drinker for much of his life. Then he quit completely. And then now he just barely drinks at all. It's weird. He was what I would call, pretty hardy alcoholic for all of my childhood, except he had his TE rules. It was like, he told them to me too. He explained them to me. Never drink before 5 p.m., son. Rule number 1. So I never saw him drink during the day. And he was never, I never saw him really act badly or anything either. He'd just come home from work, he'd pour himself a glass of wine, just drink the whole thing down in one gulp, then pour himself a second glass of wine and sit down and start to sip it and whatever. It's like the first thing he did when he got home every night. And then he'd usually have a couple of glasses with dinner, and then he'd have a whiskey on the rocks or something after dinner. But the thing is, that kind of alcoholism in my family, this is what it was like being with an alcoholic dad for me. So after dinner, my parents, my dad and my mom, would each sit in their own chair, and they'd read quietly their books, and I'd be encouraged to do the same. That's the kind of chaotic alcoholic family I grew up in. Okay, it was just, alcohol didn't make my dad crazy at all. He was just the same, He'd just sit there and read his book, you know. And he used to be about the Civil War or some other war book. He read a lot of war books. As I got a little older, I started watching a little bit more TV because TV got more interesting. But in general, what we watched in my family was Nova and other shows on PBS. My parents liked PBS, you know. And I was discouraged from watching TV. And my mom always said, the boob tube will rot your brain. And all right, I'll go unlock them. I don't know why people do that. They're just being fucking cliquey or something. I don't know. It's stupid. Makes me mad. But, you know, I've never gotten my way around this place because I'm not paying anybody to maintain it. Susie, God damn it, don't lock the door.
We have a Chloe infestation going on.
I'm gonna boot her ass. God damn it. Jesus. Okay, well, they're unlocked now. I don't know. You might not be able to get into the other room. Susie might lock it again, but I guess Chloe's causing problems. I don't know. I made a video with Chloe yesterday. I am going to upload it, but maybe she thinks I'm not going to upload it because I haven't done it yet. I just have to do some compressing on the audio is the problem. That's the only reason why I haven't uploaded it yet. Well, when I used to drink, and I drank for quite some time, when I did drink, I preferred whiskey over other hard alcohols, but I drink vodka as well. If I were going to have a fancy drink, or a drink that I wanted to pay a little bit more for and really enjoy, I'd probably get a gin and tonic with Bombay Sapphire or something in it. Hello, just think about it. Good afternoon to you, and welcome to Talking with Famous People. So we're just discussing, hi, Florian Bischoff, how's Germany treating you? Everywhere you go, are you serenaded by Oompa Loompa bands? Hey, just think about it. My name's TJ Music 24. And Florian, I want to say the same to you. My name's TJ Music 24. Welcome. That's a cool voice you got, TJ. You sound like some kind of, yeah. You're a direct descendant of Blackbeard. Blackbeard. Is he a pirate? But everybody knows about Redbeard, Bluebeard, Yellowbeard. Why am I so not known? I'm Blackbeard. It seems like the most evil of all the beard colors. Why should I be less well known? Is one of the complaints that Blackbeard has. What do you sound like, Dean M? Dean Martin? Dean M. My name is Dean M. And I talk like this. See? That's how you talk. My grandmother's maiden name is Maynard. Robert Maynard was his cousin. Killed his ass. We got the lineage books of whatnot. Whatnot. Your black gold beard? That's pretty cool. You got stripes? Blackbeard's beard is objective only if you render it first into an object of analysis, because it has no physical form. It's just an archetype floating in metaphysical space. The notion of Blackbeard, the pirate with the blackest of all the beards. The irony is you can't grow a beard. I don't find that ironic. I find that spectacularly good news. Your tender-bottomed cheeks are fresh and young and apple-cheeked. I have a grayish, brownish, reddish beard. Iron is Blackbeard's secret weapon. Iron, huh? Schrodinger's beard. Well, you know, my beard is instantiated. I'd say my beard is fully instantiated. What I mean by that is, since it's been observed, it's not in any kind of super collapsed state. Are my tenders moist at the moment? Now they're feeling pretty dry. Not overly dry, not chapped. Okay. If you get your tenders overly dry, they become chapped. If you chap your tenders, that means you're just negating your FI too much. And then you need to let the humidification of your tenders resume at some point. But no, my tenders are not chapped, but neither are they dripping. So I'd say it's a nice intermediate stage. Tenders should be damp, but not wet, I think. Instinct Nick grooming. Yeah, totally. It's just speculation, though. His secret weapon could be something different. Different than iron? I think it's a parrot. I suspect that most pirates' secret weapons are parrots. That's why, you know what you never see? You never see a non-pirate captain with a parrot. Maybe it's actually the parrot who's the captain, running the show from behind the scenes. Quite possible. Frank James has a pretty good beard. I like mine a little more trimmed, I guess. Trying to be. Trying to display good beard citizenship. How do I know if I have TI in the fourth? Well, check to see if you have FE in the first. Fourth slot TI is determine some sort of political position you have. Like, let's say you have a position about, are you generally liberal or generally conservative? Just to figure that out first. And then come up with a position that you hold as a good position. Like maybe if you're liberal, you might think taxing the wealthy is a good idea. If you're conservative, you might think locking down the borders is a good idea. You're conservative? Okay. So then what is that an argument you'd agree with? Locking down the borders is a good idea? Or do you want to give me some other argument you agree with? It's always barn ripping time, Amber Drescher. 24/7. All day, our day. Hey, 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 hey. Smoke weed every day. High power Red Bull. It's going here fine. You're neither liberal nor... Okay, so fine. So then the question would be, to determine whether or not you have fourth slot TI would be, if I were going to argue it out with you, I'd say, okay, well, what about these arguments here? And I'd give you some counter arguments, like I'd ask you some questions, like where does the right of preventing individuals from moving freely from one country to the other come from? Because it's claiming a privilege. It's not really a right. It's a privilege that justifies using force to prevent others from moving freely as they normally would. Where does that come from? And then it depends on how you answer that question. Then I'll be able to tell you where your TI is. I thought you said playing at first. I was like, does Amber play Eric? That sounds like a fun game. I want to play Amber. I'm going to be Amber Drescher one day. I'm going to go to a chat and I'm going to call myself Amber. I'm going to make lots of emoticons. I'm going to put hearts in my eyes. I'm going to put a heart on my mouth. And I'm going to squint in some of them and have tears coming and grin. Lots of emotion. I've got lots and lots of emotion in my tenderness. Hi, Curtis. Where's Curtis? I don't see any Curtis. That's right. That's right. Your little lungs is too small to hotbox with God. Okay? God's little lungs is too small to hotbox with me. So, that rapper who said that can just suck it, because I win. I don't consider myself as anything. So do you consider yourself as nothing or something? Do you have any position on any policy whatsoever? Is that, let's see, this looks like a parentheses, asterisk, line, hashtag X, up arrow X. He is politically fluid, right? So you switch from passionate liberal to hardcore conservative and back again over the course of a given day. The pirate with no tongue from Pirates of the Caribbean had a parent. He was no captain. I think that was the captain's parrot that was hanging out on him, taunting him. It wasn't his parrot. Thanks, Amber. You're the best. But speaking about paying me, not regarding the super chatting, which I certainly greatly appreciate, but if anybody wants to be typed by me, I do offer pay typing services, $100 for 75 minutes. You can email me at swartzire.gmail.com, or let me move this out of the way a little bit. Red, do you have to sit right there? That's kind of in the way. This chicken loves hanging out with me. She'd rather just hang out in here with me than go outside and peck at the dirt. PayPal, look, it says paypal.me/TWFP. If you just want to PayPal me $100, then email me and I'll set up time with you right away. Like somebody did this last night, and I emailed them last night and said, "Oh, you can do it right now if you want." And he said, "No, I can do it tomorrow too." So I'm live streaming right now because I got a little break of time here between running my errands and doing that typing. Anyway, if you'd like to do that, that's how you do it. And people generally, I think, very much enjoy it. I enjoy it. I think the conversations I have one-on-one with people where I'm really focused on them and what their type is and what their manner of attention is and who they are, I think they come out. I mean, I don't make any videos or anything. I don't record it, but I'm just saying, I think the experience is very rewarding for both parties, frankly, because it's a circumstance where I have a client, so I got to take things seriously and be professional and stuff and deal with the client as the person I'm dealing with. And it helps me in the sense that it compels me to direct my attention somewhere other than where my whim wants to direct it, which is always a good practice for me to engage in. And plus, the other person gets the experience of, having something that's probably a lot more memorable than most $100 you're going to spend. I spend $100 at dinner sometimes, and it's not that memorable. Okay, moving on. Thank you, everybody, for your support, just for watching. Anything. I appreciate it. Okay, let's see. It was his parent. It was his prosthetic tongue. Okay, well, look, we're going to have to agree to disagree here, Horseman. I'm not conceding that it was his parrot yet, because I think I recognize that parrot. I think I recognize it from earlier in Pirates of the Caribbean, and it was on a captain, I believe. I think the same parrot has flown over there. Okay, Red, TJ Music says hello. Can you say bark, bark, bark? Bark, bark, bark? Bark, bark? There, did you hear that, TJ? I hope you heard it. She said bok bok to you, which is her way of saying, hey, TJ. Thanks, Power Red Bull. Appreciate your validation of my marketing talk. Why is that a principle to uphold at the DNM? I'd say where we get off on closing down the borders is to do our best to protect what we have from changing. Okay, well, but I'm asking you where the right comes from. So, in other words, if I shoot you because you're trying to let's say you've broken into my house and you're walking out with my TV or something, and let's say I don't shoot you. Let's just say I punch you in the face and get my stuff back and you run away. Well, that attack was legitimate because you're transgressing upon my property. I'm asking you, where does the right to do that to people crossing a border come from? Put your typing on me, host Eric, please. Fate Wind, you are a breeze of fresh air, carrying the fate of all mankind on your wispy wings. Hey, TJ, if you mean me instead of the chicken red. I think he meant the chicken red. LOL works both, Power Red Bull. Fate Wind, I thought you were a CSJ loyalist. Fate Wind is like the wind itself. She's everywhere, all the time. Eric, your best. Thank you, Amber. Kill two birds figuratively, might as well. I've often said my goal in life is to create the ultimate bird holocaust where I throw one stone and all the birds die. That would be ideal. Just metaphorically. I don't actually want to kill real birds, keep in mind. So, Space Force, when will we be bringing freedom to other planets? Any day now. Any day. I'm bringing it right now, metaphysically. Later, we'll come up with a spaceship and stuff. I adore Eric's chicken too, Amber. Fuck parrots. I want a tiny monkey like Captain Barbosa. Why not get a giant monkey? Like a gorilla. I'm not a loyalist. I'm an enthusiast. Good distinction to make there, Fate Wind. It was introduced was the guy. It best you can hope is that a captain gave it to him. Sorry. Okay. All right. Well. Okay, fine. I concede the pirate argument. I lose that argument. You guys just defeated me in a debate. I lose the pirate argument, everybody. I want to hereby make that announcement. I cannot establish definitively that the parrot on the pirate with no tongue is the same parrot as was on the captain earlier in the ride. So I lose. Congratulations. Eric, what's your favorite type of cheese? I actually like sharp cheddar, I think, best of all. Extra sharp cheddar. Tillamook extra sharp is just spectacular. Not the black one, but the dark orange one. The block of it. Oh, that's the shit right there. One of those blocks of Tillamook extra sharps. That's good. It's good stuff. You can't go wrong with that. Tiny monkey is a friend gorilla may kill you. Well, it depends. Are you Landsquo Man? If you're a Landsquo Man, you can control what they do. We have an ocean separating us, and it's fairly peaceful and isolated in New Zealand. And I like that aspect. Hey, don't start feeling too safe. I could still reach you with my nuclear weapons. So what happened to your audio? I have no idea. It just quit. There was no explanation I could come up with at all. It worked fine after I left here. It just suddenly, maybe YouTube messed up. Yeah, I can't really put that there. Hopefully I'll keep better track of how long I'm spending out here. I just, she doesn't like me to work all the time on stuff out here, but I'm pushing hard trying to get shit accomplished. And, this is an indulgent hour or so that I'm going to spend in here because I feel like I'm not really doing anything, because owning something also means responsible for it and the consequences it might cause. And if you're trying to take something I own, you're taking my responsibility for that thing. Okay, so is ownership the same reason why the United States government has the right to close down the border? Don't worry, Angantir. I won't nuke New Zealand. Do all rights emerge from responsibilities? Okay, so what about the right not to be stabbed if you're a baby? Where does that come from? Do babies have the right not to be stabbed? And if so, to what responsibility does that link? Zonzi. Hello, Zonzi, who says, "Hey, peoples, it's me, Zonzi. I'm here to be the Zonziest guy I can be. I'm Zonzi. Don't you see? Both of my names start with letter Z." Is that what you say when you introduce yourself to people in the real world, Zonzi? You sing that little song? Potatoes are life. I've seen your name before, and I got to tell you, I really admire your potatoes are life name. It's a great name. It says a lot about how much you value potatoes. That was a Salt and Eric song. Just an Eric song, really. You create a rap for each of us. Whoo, CJ, you're really putting a challenge on the old NE there. I don't have that much NE. Certainly not on command. You got to kind of see the trick. Here's the trick that ENTPs do. We're really good at filling in space with stuff and knowing when to hit things and then shift all of a sudden. So everyone's still reeling, looking at the thing you just did, and you're doing something different all of a sudden. And it's a way of kind of controlling the aesthetic response, such that you never get actually critiqued for anything you're doing, because it's always surprising to you that you're doing it at all. It's that thing that NHPs tend to do, which I think everybody incorporates that strategy into their overall strategy to some extent if you're an NHP, and that's what I was doing right there. A moment of inspiration gets indulged in, and you go, wow, you're really good at making up little raps on the fly. But if it weren't for a moment of inspiration or and it weren't an indulgence, it would be a lot more challenging to actually prove how good your NE is by going, okay, well, now do 5 more of those. You go, oh, yeah, okay. You can probably do it, but, only someone will be good. I'm hit and miss. I'm very hit and miss in general. And that's just how it is to be an NE dom. Will national debt ever be balanced, or is it necessary? Are we all just working for nothing? I mean, no, because I have money and it spends. And I'm not, I guess I have a little bit of debt, but I'm not really in debt at all. So I don't know. You might say, well, the fiat currency is all debt-based, and if we got rid of all the debt, there'd be no currency left anymore. I agree that the existing approach to fiat currency distribution is stupid, and it shouldn't be linked to debt. And there's no reason for it to be, and we can see that in cryptocurrencies. It's just a matter of we need to link it to effort, right? So that's the genius notion of cryptocurrencies, is they're merit-based. The more effort you put into mining the shit, the more of it you get, right? So it's a much better kind of way of fiating a currency than is a government fiat currency. And do I think that the national debt will ever be balanced, or is it necessary? I don't think there's any need to have a national debt at all. That's a totally separate issue than the way of issuing currency, that kind of debt issue, which is separate. But as far as national debt, I don't think we should have much of a national debt. It's fine to sell a certain amount of treasury bonds, but we should pay back the bulk of what we owe, so we're not bleeding interest every year. And that's exactly what the country is doing. And remember that all that interest that's bled out to that to servicing that debt is taken directly away from growth of the economy, taken directly away from prosperity of individual people, to the extent that that money is, if we presume that money, to the extent that we presume that money weren't taken from the people, if it weren't needed to be paying back the debt. Now, if we presume instead that it's going to be redirected to some other government purpose, if we don't pay back the debt, well, then it's much less clear-cut issue, because it's not clear-cut that money would be better spent on some sort of school lunch program than on servicing debt interest. The school lunch program is likely to cause lots of unintended consequences, many of them harms. It's going to distort markets. It's going to cause all kinds of problems, as do all kinds of in-kind benefits when provided by government. It's a bad way to redistribute. If you're going to redistribute with cash payments. Okay. Good. Now I've built up some stuff to talk about. Potatoes become the most delicious food. They become the most delicious food, but only when you cook them. That's what you're saying, huh? Because you don't want to eat raw potatoes. They're not that good. You can't think you can eat them. If you do, you'll go like, shoot and scoot. Haha. I'm happy to hear you say this. Lol, right? Ooh, CJ? You mean the NE stuff? Oh yeah, it definitely has its limitations, for sure. There's tricks. It's just because, remember, it's framed with FE third slot for EHP. So there's lots of FE tricks that we have to. It only matters to the extent that you're sold on it. I don't, that's what it means to be third slot FE. Let's see. I push my 4th slot NE to the absolute limit. Shit is gonna blow a gasket any day now. Yeah, Curtis, I don't know if that's 4th slot or not. But you are definitely pushing your NE. Zanzi, potatoes life. I don't. You taught us the benefits that GMOs can give. Potatoes, yeah. Let's modify some potatoes into carnivorous creatures of some kind. Like let's try to get a potato to become, through evolution, a Venus flytrap, but a potato flytrap. So it doesn't catch just flies, catches any kind of bugs. Okay. why is Joshua L not in the March Madness bracket? To be honest, I just picked the first 30 or so people I could come up with, and then I had to find another one or two to fill slots, but I couldn't come up with 32. I Googled the shit, and I Googled it, I YouTube searched it, and I just put down the first people I saw to fill in the last couple slots. I didn't really even think about it much. I forgot Type Tips, but Type Tips is going to make it in because Haley Harbor wants out of the tournament, and I kind of want to just be like, no, too bad. You have to stay in the tournament. This isn't consensual, but because everybody wants Type Tips in, and I think it's going to be a lot more interesting with Type Tips in, I'm replacing her with Type Tips. So that works out well. And that was Ben Vasselin's suggestion, and I want to thank him for that suggestion. It's a good suggestion that I do that. He's the one who solved that problem, basically. He's like, I hadn't even seen Haley's comment yet, but he had seen it, and Haley's comment was in, typically effy, shitty fashion telling me to get her out of the tournament. I'm just like, fuck you, woman. But anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So Type Tips is going to be in there. So a lot of people ask me why I didn't put Type Tips in. Just plain forgot about it. Okay, so let me go forward. It's all a Ponzi scheme. What is? Potatoes? Educational potatoes, too? Potatoes are not a Ponzi scheme. Okay? Zulik, Kowalski, stop lying. They're going to eventually sign on to that social contract to have responsibility, so extend them the courtesy of not stabbing them until they can take it on. That's why they have the right? It's just they don't have the right, it's just a courtesy? Okay, well. So then if it's just a courtesy, then why are people arrested for it when they stab babies? Rule 34, keep it PG. See, CJ's father's rule 30. Am I not keeping it PG? Did I forget to keep it PG? I try to adhere to that rule as best I can. Yeah, cooked, of course. Have you ever typed a walrus? No, I've never typed a walrus. I think it would stab me with those big tusks. Oh, Winsies. I think I've called her an INFJ, but she's probably actually an ENFJ. Do you believe INFPs can believe they're an introverted intuitive dom due to their FI and NE creating some weird bizarro NI? Example, Jonah Dempsey believes he's INTJ but typed as NFP by GSP. I think he's NFJ, Dempsey, personally. I think he's some kind of NFJ, but I could be wrong. I haven't really typed his ass, so we'll see. I'll type him. Let's see if I agree with GSP or if I think he's NFJ or whatever. I know he's not INTJ. That's insane. Jonah Dempsey is not an INTJ. There's no way. What are rules 35 and 33? Rule 33 says, skip this rule, go to rule 34. And rule 35 says, if you violated rule 34, go back to rule 34. Okay. Something Google knows the answers to. Was Avengers Infinity War a warning of the next depression? I don't think I saw that movie. Attack of the Potatoes. Potatoes don't attack, they make love. Eric can say the F word. Fun. Type Tips is an awesome channel. Love that dude's energy. Is he all like, hooray? Don't throw shade on the nightshade, y'all. Amber Drasher, hee hee. Smiley face. No, he's referring to my teasing with the of comment. Sorry, courtesy of the right. PG. I'm Big J, black male from Texas. A white woman that likes me. Big J, I think what you need to do, if it works, let's see. Good. You go on timeout, mister. You're going on timeout, Big J. You sit on that stool and you think about it. Just ignore the stabbing jet coming out from the middle of the stool of your butthole, okay? It's there for a reason. It's there to teach you something. All right. G is okay. PG is better. PG-13 is perfect. R is a little overboard. X is not appropriate. Nazis made my father eat a bunch of raw potatoes. Oh, was he a Jew? Was he a fruit chew in the camp? I don't know if you've heard, it's happening again. History repeats itself. They're trying to kill all the fruit chews this time. Fudge PG air hugs. It says Amber Drasher. Fudge them to heck. So, like, they have the right not to be stabbed because they'll eventually be part of that social contract. Okay, but that's the only reason they have the right not to be stabbed. So, if I'm a baby and I'm going to go live off in the wilderness and not be part of a social contract, then I give up any right to not be stabbed. And we shouldn't punish people who stab babies in that capacity. Rights are like currency. They hold influence purely because we believe them to have that influence. What rights a society has is a good way of uncovering something about a society's culture. That's fair enough true about the last part of that. But rights are like a currency of some sort. However, they're deductively necessary, presuming you're willing to answer certain questions at the outset. In other words, you either have to accept slavery or accept rights. And if you don't accept slavery as an acceptable expression of society, then you have to accept rights, because then you're talking about, you have to answer a question fundamentally. Who owns you? Are you born owning yourself? Does somebody else own you? Is it possible for somebody else to take ownership of you? And all rights are derived from that question of self-ownership. And so they are logically necessary, and as a consequence, we enforce them. Why is it almost every MBTI YouTuber's name some variation of Eric? Well, look, I can't help it that all these other YouTubers copied me. I'm the only real Eric amongst them. Eric Thor spells his name wrong. Eric the INTP is, I think he pronounces it Eric. And I don't know, all the other Erics are just imitators. There's only one real Slim Shady. It's Eminem. And there's only one real host Eric. That's me. You got to remember to be courteous. Maybe that should be in my banner. Courteous typology. That's very hilarious of you, Curtis. I love your pun there. Timeout stabbing stool up your butthole. Correct. I guess I do have TI in the fourth. I don't know, Dean. Actually, you did fine. It's just I'm saying about the rights thing. It's like the best answer to the question about the borders is, functionally, the United States government has custodial control over the borders and thus functionally has ownership of it. Since they have custodial control, what that means is they have the responsibilities of ownership and the rights of ownership. But in the role of an agent for another, namely the U.S. citizenry. So as a consequence, it's a property rights issue, just like any other. The reason they have the right to control the border is because it belongs to them, or at least they have custodial control over it. And as a consequence, they get to determine what counts as transgression. I think Eminem is an ENTP. He's definitely an ENTP. Or he could be, in theory, I guess, an INTP, but I would say ENTP. Anybody who thinks he's an ISTP is absolutely insane, because ISTPs don't have enough extroverted intuition to do what Eminem does. INFJ is, in theory, believable. ENTPs, INFJ is the only type that might be able to do it and pull it off, other than ENTP or maybe ENFP, except I don't see him as being FI at all. Let's see. Can you make a video where you explain exactly what separates a shy, unconfident ENFJ from an INFJ? Shy, unconfident ENFJ. I haven't really encountered them. I think that when I think of ENFJs in a state of non-optimality, I see them as kind of stammering, but nevertheless continually trying to interface. You should be able to tell the difference based on whether you're an interface type or a knowing type. Knowing types need to know everything first, know something about everything first before they even begin to engage with it. Interface types are comfortable interfacing with the thing and knowing as they go. Oh, Big J, you're silly. That's not effective trolling. So I do want to talk a little bit about what comprises effective trolling and ineffective trolling. So, like, there's no way that would possibly be an effective troll because, for one thing, Big J, you may not be aware of this, but I myself am transracial, so it's not possible for me to be racist. I've been all different races. I've been African American, I've been Asian, I've been Eskimo, I've been Indian, I've been from Kansas, I've been all races, and so you need to sort of do a little research first. Obviously, you're not going to successfully play a race card on me when I'm transracial, which is more of a minority group than any specific race can possibly be. I'm also transgender. I go from manly to super manly and back again. And I'm transgenerational. My age varies. Sometimes I'm a very old man, sometimes I'm a very young child. It really depends. I'm the Earth's only transgender rational person. Okay, so sorry, your trolling is going to utterly fail. I've long since met it up past where you are. Okay, all rappers have to have that edge to them, and EHP's got the A/SC to work with. I think Eminem definitely is an EHP. I don't think all rappers are, but you can just tell by his insistence on telling all of his stories out in front of everybody, right? Like, none of my pain is real until you look at it. Is very ENTP. Because we don't know what to do with pain anyway. And in general, like, none of my value is worth anything until you look at it. And also this thing about, you'll notice how he, in his body of work, is often spiking shit out, anticipating possible angles where he might be attacked and doing something to counterbalance that in advance, to obviate. That's a very ENTP move, and it's consistent. I'm very familiar with his body of work, so I know what he's doing well. I understand exactly what he's doing all the time. It's so resonant with my understanding of how things are done. Like, I get his process, and implicitly, I resonate with what he's doing. So, not that it's anything like what I'm doing. I'm just saying I can see how he got from point whatever to point whatever. And it's not because I'm some sort of extra insightful person. It's because I'm the same type as him and think the same way. Okay. If you believe in the Jungian idea of the animal animus, we're all technically transgender. Well, I don't believe in the Jungian idea of the anus. Because Jung believed the anus was the portal to the soul, and I always have said, no, that's the vagina. Ineffective trolling, giving a high amount of useful things. Effective trolling, doing shit that gets people annoyed for no good reason. No, I don't think that's correct. I think effective trolling is that which evokes an emotional response or some sort of response that indicates that the troller has taken charge of the behavior of the trollee, right? So what I did was I did comment on the trolling a little bit, and I didn't even, but you notice I didn't read what he said or even address what he said directly. I didn't recap what he said for you. I simply gave my response, which I thought was interesting and I thought played nicely as a package. So overall, it was win-win for me and lose-lose for him. You can troll successfully and with, I think, sometimes fun results, but I'm hard to troll. It's possible, but this guy's not going to succeed. And, it's like, you've successfully trolled someone if you've written a one-sentence response to their comment and they come back with another big block of fucking text, and you write another one sentence and they go, another big block of text, then you're winning the trolling. But it's a little different in a live stream like this because obviously we're all enjoying discussing the various things going on around us as well as these general abstract ideas. And so in that regard, I kind of appreciate Jay's appearance to provide the example of poor trolling so that we could do the meta-analysis on it, which would be more fun than not doing any analysis at all, and therefore makes it, again, a win-win for me. Do MBA graduates know that they are the most powerless of all? They seem so oblivious. I don't know any MBA graduates, I don't think. ENTPs are polar FI, so on some level they probably feel extremely fluid in their display. If they want to play edgy rapper, they can. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the biggest challenge the ENTP has is ENTPs don't want to be hypocritical. and they don't like being dishonest because that threatens their ability to use their TI effectively. If they got to maintain shit that's not consistent with their memory, especially, then they're going to have a hard time. They're going to get caught in a lie or something. So we learn early on to just always be direct, tell the truth and stuff. It's safer. Let's see here. Don't follow him much, but he switches between two polar ideas of what can be, and it does seem like an ENTP looking at everything, ironically. I agree with you, and you're correctly using the word polar there and not talking about POLR. So, usually when we see in this chat POLAR, somebody's misspelled capital P, little O, capital L, capital R, which stands for place of least resistance in socionics, and which is termed polar when we speak it as though we're pronounced like that word there, polar, but you're actually using the word polar as intended there. So I'm just glad I note that. It's difficult to troll in E-type since we enjoy the adventure. It's not really going to annoy us. We chase down those loose ends out of habit. Yeah, right. It doesn't annoy me at all. So an INFJ has complained about my analytical discussion of a type's functions piece by piece. Thoughts? Why? Tertiary TI, FI, FE priorities, demo FI. INFJs sometimes are, well, like my friend Corey is very TI resistant when it conflicts with his NI at all. And he's an example of an INFJ who goes overboard with the NI and gets into conspiracy theories. And I go, okay, but that doesn't make any sense because and you just don't get it. You don't see the NI. Except he doesn't know anything about cognitive functions, which is why he's so stuck in his butt fuckery, I'm sorry, I meant butt fudgery. Yeah, it's just too much NITE. They're not attaining. They think they're attaining on their TI. They think they're attaining the third slot because as long as they don't have to hear other people explain to them why they're not, they can just kind of assume it is TI consistent. They'll just find the TI consistencies and not challenge themselves at all. It's somebody who stopped growing. Because INFJs don't have to turn out like that and don't always at all, so there you go. It is time for another bong rip, Amber. Thank you for saving the day. I really appreciate that because I can sit here forever and fail to pick up the bong like I should, Who's doing butt fudge? Well, we're all doing butt fudge, Batman. We're all butt fudging around right now. Okay, Amber Thrasher, I'm going to transubstantiate this bong rip for you. That means it's going to go out of my lungs, and the impact on the head, instead of going into my brain, will go into yours. As Archpastor of the Elorian Church, I hereby do transubstantiate this bong rip to go into Amber's brain instead of mine. There you go. There you go, Amber. You're probably pretty high now. I hope you're going to be okay. I hope you're not driving. Oh, shit, that was dangerous. I should have checked to see if you were driving first. My bad. Because, you can drive fine on weed, but if you totally all of a sudden get stoned and you're not a normal pot smoker, it might cause a crash, I guess. I should have checked. When am I going to pull over Shannon the Cannon Powers? Soon. I got a lot of fucking things on a list of things to do, and I keep rolling through them as much as I can, but, I only have so many hours in the day. I got to spend time with Kimberly too. And I want to too, but sometimes I get like, God, if I could just be left completely alone for 3 weeks straight, get 4 hours of sleep a night, I would get so much shit done, But of course, that's just not life. Life doesn't afford you those kind of sabbaticals unless you're some sort of college professor. This is the best grapefruit juice. I hereby give free advertisement to Trader Joe's grapefruit juice. Trader Joe's grapefruit juice. Better than the other grapefruit juices that you can get at the store. Okay. Okay, that's my glowing endorsement of Trader Joe's brand grapefruit juice. Consistently better. It really is. I don't know what they do. Maybe they pick the grapefruits by hand, one at a time, lovingly squeezing them, touching the dampness of the tenders. Meow, meow, meow. It's a French cat. That's my favorite phrase from Eric. It's a French cat? Meow, meow, meow. I don't know what that is. Okay. How do you convince each thinking type TI and TE? And how do you convince each feeler type? That's a good question. How do you convince a thinking type TI? Well, you do it with logic. You win the arguments. How you do it with TE, you convince them that the thing is useful or effective, or that the net impacts are going to outweigh the costs. And they're going to be very careful about determining those two things. It's a cost-benefit analysis that TE does, basically, to initiate consideration of a given interface. And as far as the FI types, you have to use a dampness detector. So what you're going to do, a dampness detector is a lot like one of the things they have on Star Trek, where the Dr. McCoy runs it over you and it tells them what's wrong with you, except all it does is detect your dampness. So first you find the dampness in the body. Once you've located it, then I don't know, I guess pour some talcum powder on it. I'm not sure. And how do you convince the FE types? You just got to convince them that everybody would be shocked if they thought that, if anybody knew you knew that, people would be so offended. They'd think you should be really ashamed of yourself. Oh, really? Oh my God. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. I don't think that. No. I'm going to distance myself from that. But yeah, I used to drink a lot of Greyhounds too. And Rasher, I had a fondness for Greyhounds, for gin and tonics, for old fashions. That's a great drink. If you're still a drinker and you haven't had one before, go to a bar that knows what they're doing a little bit and ask for an old fashioned. Preferably like a hotel bar will have good ones usually, or if you know a bar that knows what they're doing and tries to do it right. The drinks are going to be more expensive there, but get an old fashioned, which has in the bottom of it fresh oranges, one of those cherries from the red bottle of cherries and liquid, maraschino stuff, and some bitters, a little bit of that maraschino sauce, maybe if you wanted to replace the sugar, but you're supposed to put sugar instead. Sugar, and you mash up the orange and the cherry and the sugar and the bitters all together at the bottom. Then you put ice, and then you put bourbon, and then you put a little bit of soda water or tonic water or whatever on top of it. That's a really good drink. Oh, a little bit of orange juice too. A little splash of orange juice in there. That's a really good one. That's called the old fashioned. It's a good drink. I highly recommend it for those of you who drink. Another great drink being, as Amber mentioned, the Greyhound. And the third great drink being the gin and tonic. If you get it made with like Bombay, Sapphire, or Tanqueray is pretty good too. That's like the most refreshing drink I think you can get. There was the one time I almost drank, I came closest to drinking in the 5 years that I have not drank now. Was in China, and it was a hot day, and I was thirsty as fuck, and there was a bar right there, and I thought, oh my God, I would kill for a gin and tonic. Okay, what's my favorite typology channel out there? I don't really watch typology channels for typological information. I probably did at the beginning when I first started watching YouTube. When I first started being on YouTube, was really the first time I'd ever watched much YouTube either. And I started watching some type videos. I remember, like, way back when I started, there was this guy named, when you search ENTP on YouTube for if you search on YouTube for ENTP, this guy Kirk came up. And Kirk was kind of like not an ENTP. Now, in retrospect, thinking about it, he probably wasn't an ENTP. He'd probably find his ass. Anyway, he'd talk about like how you know if an ENTP likes you. And he seemed sort of NFJ-ish, frankly. And I'd always have his videos pop up with my suggestions. The Kirk. That's what it's called. The Kirk. So I remember watching his videos. I remember watching EJR&D videos when I first came around. He still had his Typology channel. I watched a couple of those. And then for a long time, I just read a bunch of shit on the internet. Like I read a bunch of socionic stuff and read a bunch of whatever, and not really watch a lot of other people's videos. And so right now, I'd say I don't really have a favorite typology channel. I don't watch them. I don't really watch anything on YouTube. I watch TED Talks sometimes. I watch some other. I mean, now I watch shit because I'm making videos. If I'm watching YouTube, I'm making a video about watching YouTube. Old fashioned is the most mismade drink on average. I agree with you there, Tim Bulwer, 100%. You got to go to a good bar to have it made, or make it yourself, because people fuck it up all the time. And they think, oh, this substitute is fine for this ingredient. You know, ENFJ always are typing as something else. It's crazy. Well, because ENFJs, I don't know. They don't seem to want to be ENFJs. Let me see. What system do you have if you have one to evaluate romantic compatibility between types? I'm fond of, in general, or tend to lean towards duality. I think duality works well if everything goes right. It's not no guarantee, but I also think that it only works. It works better in some quadrants than others. In alpha quadrant, I think it works well. I think ENFP and ISFJ work well. I think if I had a less damaged ISFJ, my relationship would be easy squeezy. As it is, it's a bit of a challenge. I happen to come across a 684 or an 864 or 486, something like that, in terms of Enneagram, which means she's fighty. And she's not trusting because of damage and stuff like that. So I have a challenge with my ISFJ, but it's still working out fine. And I still can't imagine being with anybody else but her. Now that I've been with her for almost 2 years, it's like I understand her, and she understands. There's some sort of connection with duality that's very home feeling. And I think it works for ESFJ and INTP as well. I think it tends not to work for ESTJ and INFP. I've seen several of those fail, and I don't think I've seen anyone succeed, really. I think it works pretty well for ESTP, INFJ, but it takes a while for them to both feel like that. Because, I mean, the thing is, there's a natural push and pull in a duality relationship where it kind of depends on the level of development of both individuals. So when I came into this relationship, I came in at a very high level of development in terms of thinking about how I think about relationships and thinking about how she's thinking about relationships. But in some sense, I came in at a very low level because I came in with assumptions about her that were completely unwarranted. And, I just sort of assumed that when I came into this relationship, I sort of assumed that everybody is like me. Or I think everybody assumes this. Everybody is basically like me, which means we're going to share basically the same values because I'm a good person and I know what the good values are. And what I've learned is it's very difficult when you're dealing with somebody who doesn't share your fundamental values about your tool function, especially. So Kimberly and I get into conflicts because she doesn't want to work with me with my tool function. She doesn't want to use TI to solve anything or to resolve any disputes. Of course, it's the only way that we have to resolve them because neither of us has front stack FI. The other way would be through FI. That would be how we'd resolve those disputes. We'd be like, okay, I just need you to really understand how important this is to me, and then you'll get it. And then the other person will be like, but this is important to me. But if ultimately the calculus comes out that it really is that much more important to you, then you should get your way, and then that solves the problem. That's how you solve shit with FI. With TI, it's who's being more fair. And she's always losing that and refusing to engage with me about that. And the thing about it is, I don't need her to lose per se. Like I don't care about that. That's the whole point about TIs. I'm not trying to make her lose. I'm trying to actually get to the bottom of shit and resolve things. In fact, my FE is such that I'm going to err on the side of always taking more responsibility than I really deserve, probably, and always saying and initiating this process and going, okay, Kimberly, listen, I know we just finished fighting a second ago, but I'm really sorry that I said this thing. I shouldn't have approached it that way. I should have taken a different approach, and I should have said something like this, and it's my bad, and I apologize. And, in my home, I grew up in a home in which the correct response to that, and the only response you ever got to that was, oh, I'm sorry too, and I also did something wrong. I did this thing wrong here. And there'd be a working back towards peace, right? It seemed to me the only good way to be a family member, or the only good way to communicate effectively with each other is as loved ones. However, I have since, been with Kimberly, I've learned that there are people who have a genuinely pathological inability to do that. They cannot admit when they're wrong. They cannot say they're sorry. They cannot hug it out. They don't expect it ever to go out that way. They always expect it to end in both people being adversarial and trying to win against each other. And it's a habit that is hard to break. So that is an answer to which your favorite typology channel? I don't know what the hell I was talking about. Oh, I know. It was Giovanni Benevento. Yes, I like duality. Interesting question. And if anybody else experiences that, if I skip your question, do what Giovanni Benevento said there and tell me that I skipped your question, and I'll go back and find it. Sometimes I just do, and I don't know why my eyes just skip over it. If you want one done correctly, your best shot is a casino. What types avoid being vulnerable and put up a barrier within themselves? I think that in general, it has to do with the amount of damage you sustain as a kid more than your type, such that if you have a pretty charmed life, you'll be pretty open and trusting. And if you don't, you'll be the opposite. So NI being high, NE being hyper. Thanks. Just think about it. It's a beautiful metaphor. It's not very good for INTJ ESFP, though, in my opinion. Well, I mean, you got to find the right ESFP. There's this thing where there are good individuals of every type for sure, and there are some types though that you have a harder time. You're gonna have a harder time being successful being that type than other types. And I think every type has its pitfalls, and every type has its own sort of success criterion that it judges itself against. And whether or not you fall into those pitfalls is often a matter of particularism and or potentially something like a person's basic character. I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing to attribute something to, but that would kind of make some sense. I can't find my cigarettes. I thought I had them with me. Oh, sure. Did I leave them in the car? Have I smoked a cigarette this whole time I've been on this live stream? I've been on this live stream an hour and 23 minutes. Did anybody remember me smoking a cigarette at any point during this live stream? That'd be crazy if I went that whole time without a cigarette. I guess a couple of bong rips help. Okay, casino. Oh, I see what you're saying about the casinos. Casino's a good place to get drinks. Yeah, probably. Old school typology people used to say people should date with their temperament. I don't agree with that. I like socionics duality better. ISFJ, lol, good luck. Also, the most fun games are bar games. The most fun games are games where everyone can win, Tim. Okay? No losers today. No losers. We're all winners. We all get a certificate. I think INFJ works better with ENTP, but it can turn competitive. I think that ultimately INFJ needs SE and they're going to get NE, and ENTP needs SI and they're going to get SE. So they're going to get NI. So that's the problem. They're not getting what they seek. I think duality is somehow okay, but the fourth letter should stay the one you have. The fourth letter should stay the one you have? P's? P's? Well, okay. I'll say this regarding that, Giovanni. Are you accounting for the fact that the J's and P's are backwards in MBTI? So, for example, Kimberly is an ISFJ, but she begins her stack with a perceiving function, SI. So she really should be called ISF little p, like they do in socionics. If you say that, then you're right. If you're talking about, if you're thinking about it in those terms, correct, that the fourth letter should stay the one you have. Because if the introvert is going to be backwards. So But if you think it should be the opposite, then you're wrong, because in that case, that would mean I would be with a ISFP, in which case it's conflictor, because that means they're FISENITE. None of the shared functions, and their dominant nature is my polar. My dominant nature is their polar. It's a nightmare. My mom did that. Someone who can't admit when they're wrong is pretty much a relationship breaker for me. Well, I would have said so too, but it turns out not to be true. Because after a certain period of time, you realize that the individual knows to some extent when they are wrong and makes an effort to communicate that to you non-verbally in different ways. And you've got to sort of be willing to be flexible in that regard if you care about the person. And there's lots, and if it's your dual, you inevitably will care about them a lot, you know. Yeah, I don't think that's true. If duality perfection relationships requires undamaged people, good luck finding one. Even those that think they are probably aren't damaged, probably are. I agree with you. There aren't any undamaged people, really. If you are undamaged, it's a form of damage itself, because then you're going to be like completely lacking in empathy or being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, because everybody else is experiencing some sort of damage. And if you just drifted through life without experiencing any, then you're not going to be very empathetic, probably. Yeah, I don't know what it is exactly about it. It just drives me nuts, and I lose all interest in even caring about that person's well-being. Well, it's because probably TI is your tool function. It sounds like that would be my guess. Because oh, Big J. Didn't I put you on timeout? Yeah, I did. Okay, so yeah, anybody can go there. Anybody can go and talk there. Bod 123. You got a bod 123. Let's see here. Yeah, Zanzi, it probably means you have TI tool function. Those are people who will be most driven nuts by that. Do you guys know duality relationships that work kind of effortlessly? Susie and Abraham do seem to, INTP, ESFJ, but it can depend, I guess. I'm sorry your mother is seemingly incapable of admitting her flaws or outright misunderstanding. That's so difficult. Yeah, well, with mom, it's a little easier. I think for anybody a little easier with mom than it would be for a significant other, because, I mean, moms are moms, and everybody's got to deal with a certain amount of mom irrationality. I can see an ESTP being a match for whom? For INFJ or ISFJ, or I'm not sure. Amber, yeah, I think it's something ingrained somehow, unfortunately for some. What is? Poop? I'm the INTP. The ESFJ should find me with their FE. Haha. Oh, they will. They'll probably find you. No, Eric, you haven't had a cigarette. Thank you for answering that question, Amber. I appreciate that. It is true then that my cigarettes are in the car. I'm going to wrap this up here in about 5 minutes. I got pay typing at 2. And I will, again, point to these things here. If you'd like me to type you, it's a 75-minute session, $100. PayPal.me/CWFP, and email me. I can usually set up a time slot within a day or two of that occurring. So, quickly wrapping this up. If you could bring only one to a deserted island, would you bring your arch enemy or best friend? Oh, best friend? I mean, that's a weird question. I have to think about it more, because now I'm thinking, is there some reason to take your enemy? Let me think about that. Is questioning your type constantly a typical INFJ thing because their functions? No, it's typically INFP, or it could be anybody. I don't know. Then you should be in a location where ESFJs go, like a home decor store. Right, go hang out at Michael's. What are you doing? X -4 is less than X is greater than 9. Anything between -4 and 9. ISFJ F Little P sounds like a rapper's name. Little Penis. There's some rappers who name himself Little Penis. I got a little penis and my name was Little Penis. Amber should help him find them. Yeah, Amber. Help him find them. Help him find what? I don't know. It's not you imagined your truth. It's your truth. Your mother's total dental denial does total dental coverage. Your mother has total dental coverage? How lucky for her. What's the context with the math? Did I miss something? I'm wondering the same thing. Duck and autocorrect. Autocorrect ruined my life. Denial. It didn't ruin your life, Amber. It made my moment. I'm an ENTP and my ex was an INFJ and she would always want me to make SE plans with her, like going to see Christmas lights, but usually our SE plans would turn into an NE fest instead. And I began because I'm Dom NE. And she'd be like, this is not satisfying my need. I'm seeking SE, not NE. Can you please stop NEing at me? Okay. What types do you think are the most prone to develop bizarre, obscure fetishes? For sex stuff? Probably like ENTPs. I would guess. Just my guess. Maybe INFJs. ENTPs and INFJs probably the most metaphysical types. Maybe ENFJs. I'm thinking SI and FI. I think it's most metaphysical. They want to play with the sexual archetypes rather than the sexual actualities. Good FI moments through heavy, though heavy, are appreciated since I usually feel more disconnected from my own SI except for in selected moments. That's because it's not safe to be connected to it for very long. It's like being connected to an electric chair. It'll kill you. Thanks for talking, Amber. Curtis Red Bull, etc. Likewise, I want to echo TJ's sentiments there. Thanks for talking, Amber, Curtis Red Bull, etc. And everybody else not mentioned, including Just Think About It, Tim Bulware, Angintier, Bod123, 100 Mile Media, and so forth. And can typing everyone get to the point of mental masturbation? No, I mean, I think the more often I type people, the better I get at it, the more confident I am in the results, including the degree of confidence I have in the results, being one of the results. So, but that's just me typing a bunch of different people all the time. And I don't do it as I go out my life casually usually, unless something jumps out at me. I don't make an mental effort to type people I encounter in the world. Like when I go to a restaurant, unless the waitress is just laying the fucking FE on like cement on a barren sidewalk, then I'm not going to really type them. I'm just going to not think about it. Okay. So anyway, thanks everybody for being here. I appreciate you helping me kill an hour and a half before this typing, and I am dying. Zanzi, that assumes you're a closed system, okay? We're open systems who can be aware of our tendencies to get into ruts and habits and critique them, or we could be an NEDOM who's instinctually going for the novel all the time and has to restrain themselves to what already has worked before rather than deviate from it. So in that instance, it's a good way to be, okay? Practice makes perfect for ENTPs. Practice makes habits for other people.